When I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
Put my hat up.
I'm South Carolina, so I just.
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Moss?
Oh, my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.
My heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? John.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself.
The doctor lived next door to the janitor to the reverend and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it for all the more.
Letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover. Entered the winning for the long haul, baby. Interesting day in the neighborhood. Okay, today's guest is Michael Haynie, and as he's getting himself tuned in, we're going to discuss today the mayoral forum that was held on Monday night. It featured Thiru Vignaraja, Brandon, last name Scott, Sheila Dixon, and Bob Wallace. Straight back from Africa, all the way from East Africa, Nairobi even, it's Michael Haynie. Good morning, Mr. Haynie.
Hey, good morning, Doni. Always a pleasure.
Mr. Haynie, how was Africa?
Africa was absolutely phenomenal, man. You know, I wish more people understood, particularly in the precarious times we're in now, that, you know, is that our relief? Is that our opportunity? I went over there to start a business with 4 African nationals. We always talk about it as Black people from America, but many of us don't always put the foot on the ground to do it, and it's not a very difficult thing. So it was just absolutely phenomenal. Then I got a chance to visit the orphanage, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and the grateful Black children over there and very difficult situations with smiles on their faces. So it was just a great time, man. Thank you for asking.
Well, tell me about the orphanages. Actually, during my trip to Africa in 2006, we visited an orphanage in Ethiopia up in Ambo town. You were in Kenya. What was the name of the orphanage you visited?
Ahadi, the Ahadi school has about 80 young kids from the age of 4 all the way up to 17 years old. You know, when we were over there last, we adopted this orphanage, and you know, the kids, you know, they live there. Teachers live there as well. Teachers make less than $200 a month because when you talk about money and what they make over there, you'd be surprised at some of the salaries. But you know, the kids are very grateful, man. We took a bunch of stuff over there, a bunch of food, supplies, commitment to ensure that these kids have what they need, including 2 that we adopted the last time we were there, or we adopted, and when they are ready to go to high school, we're going to sponsor them, going to a school, man. You know, just a real feel good moment.
One of the things that we as Americans do not always understand is that while we got a chance to go to school for free. That's not happening in Africa.
No, during the pandemic when we were over there, man, they were out in the streets selling masks, potatoes, whatever they could sell, however they could gather money because school was not free over there. Although you're starting to see some subsidy by the government, but like the Maasai tribe that just recently, when I mean recently, the past couple of decades, started to realize that education was their way and beginning to forge some sort of way for their children to go to school. You're starting to see the benefits of that, but it's something that costs money over there. So you got salaries, for instance, a hotel worker over there makes $225 a month for 40 hours a week. $225 a month. We can't even fathom that, even though the economy scales are a bit different. They're not that different. That $200 a month, where we're looking for that a day minimally, and some of us an hour, then all of a sudden they got electricity over there, they got cell phones over there, they've got food and transportation needs over there as well, and then to have to pay for education because they didn't close schools during the pandemic over there. They had to continue, they continued to educate and they had to continue to pay for that education. They had to find a way. And so for most families, that became a priority.
Mm-hmm. So another thing that we don't understand, not just as African Americans, but as Americans, is when a person from a country like Kenya comes to America, we don't get their hunger. We don't get their thirst for knowledge, for ascension, for progress, for development. We don't get their drive, or do we?
No, I don't think we do. And I think that we always criticize and we're critical, particularly because you hear a lot, particularly islanders or from the Caribbean, those that come over here, they always tease the Jamaicans work 2, 3, 4 jobs because many of the opportunities that are presented to them in their country, you come to America, it's a whole different perspective in terms of the amounts that they get and the opportunities they get. So we spoiled as a people over here and don't realize what we have based on our gains. And it's a bit of a conflict to a degree because, we're protesting, rightfully so, in terms of how we're treated, rightfully so, because we're part of a nation that has not always considered us a part of them, where you go to Kenya, you go to Uganda, you go to Ghana, and all these other countries, this is their home. This is not necessarily Black Americans' home, and we realize that. But since we're here, we're going to be treated fairly.
So you say now I digress. You say this is not necessarily our home when there's ample evidence that Black people were here in this country long before slavery.
Yeah, there's ample opportunity. There's ample example of us. And you're right, 1500s, 1600s were Blacks, Native Americans, etc.
Or look at the Olmec heads. They were in Mexico 2,500 years ago. Absolutely. In the Arizona desert, although it's sometimes argued as a hoax. We understand that Egyptian artifacts have been found in the Grand Canyon, and there are 450 mound pyramids resembling that of the pyramids in Egypt found across the United States. So I personally don't buy into this belief that Black people first came here in the bottom of a slave ship.
Hey, you know what? That may be true, Donnie, but on a whole, maybe we came from somewhere. Maybe we caught our own ships over here, but we came from somewhere, and artifacts and history show that we probably came from the continent of Africa. Okay,
no
that's
question.
Where we as Black people came. Okay,
no
and
question.
What I'm saying is that this world is based on segregation. The Jews have Israel. Palestinians, hey, they're still fighting for a two-state solution, which should be perhaps, particularly given the political climate and the climate of this country, of their acceptance and their apprehension of the browning and blacking of America. Because truly, in 2024, that's what the issue is. The browning and blacking of America. That's the apprehension. You go to Africa and the 54 countries or nations over there, all in a segregated sort of aspect of things, right? Ghanaians, Kenyans, Ugandans, everybody has their piece of land. Jordanians, you can go to Ukrainians, you can go to Chinese. Everybody has the segregation is what this world seems to be built on. You hang with those that are similar to you and are like you, and maybe there's some dissension within that, but that's what it is. Black people in America or Black America, they don't have that.
We don't have
They
what?
don't have. We don't have our own country or land, so to say, other than what it is that we're sold and purchased and paid for. We don't have our own. We come from somewhere forced, and we're talking about modern, let's call it modern day, since the Constitution in America was formed. You know, Black people were brought here on slave ships from Africa, and we were used to build this country and build a generational wealth. But we were never given 40 acres and a mule. We were never able to stake out
Bob
a plot
DeShields,
of land.
attorney Bob DeShields, our mutual friend, says that when our feet hit the ground, we were automatically citizens. Now, whether white America wants to acknowledge that or not, according to Mr. DeShield, it's irrelevant. Once our feet hit the land, we are automatically citizens.
Don't disagree with that, Donnie. Don't disagree with that at all. But let's look at the reality of it is, what did that citizenship come with? Chains, shackles. I hope we spin off to where I just came from in Montgomery, Alabama, and the Justice and Peace Center down there, and the tens of thousands of Blacks that hit the ground as citizens being desecrated, hung, burnt in this country, and the tears that streamed down my face this past weekend as I saw the tens of thousands of African Americans that were lynched in this country as citizens, so Bob says, and you and I possibly agree to, and what ownership and what rights we have from the time that we were brought over here. There's some serious contradictions in terms of citizenship, the value, and what that means when it comes to being Black. And this recent Supreme Court decision, in favor of Donald Trump, which isn't about Donald Trump, but about the tens of millions of people behind him that are afraid. This is why immigration on the southern border is so important to them. And this is why certain boundaries in terms of people coming from certain countries important. They're afraid of the browning and blacking of America. Look at California. Look
It's
at
too
Texas.
late to be afraid.
Oh, it is not too late to be afraid
It's too late to be afraid. It's already here.
Yeah, well, you know what? That may be true, Donnie, but guess who still controls the economy?
God. At the end of the day, for me,
theoretical philosophy. That's a good theoretical philosophy.
for
but the
me, at the
reality
end of the day, God. Because let me just interject.
Mhm.
A tsunami can come in. There could be mutually assured destruction where China, Iran, Russia, the US, they all push the button at the same time. We're all blown up. We're all nuclear. We're all radioactive. So people of faith, whether you're Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, or what have you, no sane person wants mutually assured destruction. And those who do are the real problem. Just like those people digging up the moon, whether they're Russian, Chinese, or American. Can you believe they're digging up the moon, Mike? Mike, look at me. They are digging up samples of the moon. It's going to be a cost to pay for that, my friend.
Well,
Tell them to go dig up a sample of the sun.
Yeah, theoretically, Donnie, I live in reality. And the reality of it is that we're probably in World War III already. We just haven't felt the true substance of it. The reality of it is that we don't own our fair share. The reality of it is that Black power in America is a foregone It's in the rearview mirror of us as Black Americans because we have bought into a systemic racism that paints an illusion that we have something when we really have nothing, and particularly when you really look at the basic
I
aspects of
disagree,
essence
Mike.
of human.
I
Well,
disagree.
that is your right to disagree.
Just yesterday, I watched some Latino men in the 1100 block of North Carrollton Avenue go into a house that they purchased for under 20,000, a building that has no roof, and they have already started to transform a house that has been vacant for 15 years. If they can do it, what is wrong with us? I will tell you what is wrong with us. We have, in so many ways, bought into Americana. We have so bought into, I got to move to the suburbs. We have bought so into, this neighborhood is crap. I want to move out there to where the white people are. To hell with building up my own neighborhood. I want to move where they are because it must be nice when, in fact, white people are moving back to the hood.
Yeah,
You
well,
can't
Donnie,
make this stuff up.
Donnie, I think you and I agree. We absolutely agree because I agree with you, and this is what I talk about the terms of Black power, particularly when we see the erosion right now of our civil rights and liberties on many fronts being threatened, And you're right in terms of gentrification, as you talk about infrastructure improvements of transportation. You see white people coming back into the city, Black people going out. And, what does Black power mean? How do we understand what Black power means where we have a civil rights? And granted, the browning and blacking of America, as well as some of the concerns about the criminality issues in our urban centers by white people, their fear and apprehension as American mainstream media continues to play up and make Black people look like the ultimate bad guy in this country. And they see it around the world. I've had a chance to be in Costa Rica, just got back from Selma, was in Africa, was in Germany. And you ask, because I consider myself a bit of media, not to your extent, people their perception of America, particularly Black America, and they blame it on American media. American media is destroying the world. They view CNN like Russian media controlled by the state and sold Americans a bill of goods that makes them believe, and that's why it's important for platforms like this for people to understand. As long as we speak in the truth and giving Black people an opportunity to go further and explore what you say and what I say, because many of them hear for the first time things on this network and on my show and my network that they may not have heard because they're listening to the wrong sense of urgency as it relates to us as a people.
So let's take a moment and thank you and the others. Certainly you run Parkway Hospitality Management. You've been a huge sponsor, the hugest sponsor of this network, along with Dr. Taborn. We want to thank you, Mr. Haynie. Since we have gotten your support back in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, we have gone on to get an Emmy nomination. We've continued our coverage of the White House, and we've even brought on the current press secretary. Wanted to tell you that on Friday, March 29th, we will be hosting at noon. This is early. We will be hosting Black Wall Street, Howard University. And one of our honorees is Roderica Applewhite, the director of Black Media. And it is important to us, Mr. Haynie, that you are there so you can meet this young lady and we can get a group photo. Now, I'm sure you'll do some networking after that, but it is so important that we celebrate a Roderica Applewhite as well as a Karine Jean-Pierre, and the other black people at the White House who have opened the door for us.
Well, Donnie, I had an opportunity. First of all, thanks for the kudos, but it is a duty, in addition to an honor, to support platforms such as yours, which helped me spin off into a platform of mine. Last week we had Joke Abraham Thune, a Sudanian who attends University of Maryland, Baltimore County, started a school over in Sudan, uses black people in America, black Americans, to help fund that school. A real nice school, man, because that's the way. And so with Jock on the show, we had over 3,000, Donnie, 3,000 viewers on Sunday at 7 p.m. as we talked to Jock. You mentioned Bob DeShield a couple of weeks ago. We had over 2,000 on an evening. And our show was more national in content as we look to educate Americans in terms of the day. But my point is that it all started as a result of you and what you're doing, because you are the groundwork for black media. And if the perception in Africa and Germany that CNN and MSNBC and Fox are state-controlled media outlets, then where do blacks turn to get the real deal? How do we find out that the first 3 soldiers killed in the Middle East war were African Americans out of Georgia? How do we find out that China buys more oil from the U.S. than from Saudi Arabia than the U.S. and Saudi is mostly a prostitute and they're going to go with China, and that the war in Ukraine and Russia is one that we're already involved in, and that we are in the midst of the world war?
How about this one? The fentanyl on the streets of the U.S. most likely comes from China. How about this one? China just got back Hong Kong in 1997 after being under 150 years of British control, all because of the opium wars. So do they even really care how much fentanyl we sniff or shoot or smoke when they're just getting Hong Kong back after 150 years, Michael?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right, Donnie. I don't think that they do care, but I think what we need to care about.
Why would they?
People,
but we need to know.
Yeah, but as a people, we have to understand the precarious times that we're in, and that we are almost like lost souls in this country, in my opinion. And I heard you mention at the top of your show about a mayoral election in Baltimore featuring.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that on the second half.
Where is our leadership? We've got a guy in South Carolina named Tim Scott that's exalting and promoting a known racist that used racist tendencies, although he's not really the danger. Donald Trump is not really the danger in this country. The danger in this country for African Americans is our lack of cohesiveness and leaderships within our own realm and confines.
Mike, we're 13% of the population. I think a lot of times we forget about the numbers. We forget about who we're up against. It's almost like a midget versus a giant, a little person versus a super tall person.
I thought you had said that when we hit the ground that we were citizens of this country. So what do percentages have to do?
We are citizens.
What do percentages have to do with how I'm treated in various situations?
Because you want civility from someone who's never known civility.
Okay, so then how does that affect my citizenship? Is it the price on my head, or how much I have in my account?
Let me give it to you like this. If all of the 44.4 million black people in America got therapy for the trauma we've endured as African Americans, it would mean nothing if the other 310 million white Americans did not get therapy also. You're taking a clean glass and putting it right back into a dirty sink full of dirty water.
Hey, Donnie, you gave the analogy earlier of the Latinos in your community, your black community, very black community for now until that red line comes through up there. And then you'll start to see the whiting of Sandtown, which you're probably seeing on the cusp of the outskirts of it anyway. because
Oh,
I'm sure they're
we're
buying
seeing
it up.
our white
Yeah,
brothers and sisters come through the community already.
we know, and our white brothers and sisters in Christ. Okay, we can call them in that, but we can't call it in
Yeah,
constitutionality.
because they
Okay,
buying dope like it's going out of
yeah.
style. They in the
So
dope
you
line.
mentioned that. You mentioned that, right? That they had that opportunity. So we as a people, how do we begin to get our own?
Well,
13%.
I'm glad
It's
you
not
asked
about
that.
percentages. It's not
I'm
about
glad
percentages.
I'm glad you asked that. So if white people are coming to the black community to buy dope and for free housing, i.e., squatting in vacants, I would think the first thing we need to do is find another profession besides selling dope. That's like leaving out food in a house. You're attracting mice, you're attracting rats, and then you're wondering why you have rats. Stop feeding them.
Hey,
Now, can
Donnie,
someone without education, without job skills, can they find something else better to do than sell dope? Well, yes, they can. How do I know this? Because there are penitentiaries. And when we go to prison for selling dope, we get to the penitentiary, and then all of a sudden we start getting other skills like, I don't know, making license plates.
Hey, Donnie, I think you forgot that there's a correlation between the selling of the dope and the prison system in America because, first of all, dope has always been part of the black people's economy, so that isn't going anywhere. And when you look at the profitability of it,
Not
which now
always.
whites, now hear me out for a second, because you said something that doesn't make any sense when it's part of how. So when they stopped allowing black kids to sell dime bags and nickel bags on the street corner because they opened up these legal stores inside of shopping malls, taking away a bit of our economy, right? Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And you said earlier, where does the fentanyl, where does the bags of marijuana, although you can grow it now, they figured out a way to
The
grow it in
fentanyl comes from
Western
China.
Maryland.
The
The
fentanyl comes
point
from
is,
China.
Donnie, is that selling dope is part of black people's economy. And they shut us out from one part of it with the marijuana legalization, in which very few of us have a stake in that. So, yeah, transition to Joe Biden in the 90s, along with his cronies in Senate that passed legislation that made criminalization of marijuana such that their buddies who ran the prison systems, because at that point, they, subcontracted prisons out and it became a for-profit model. So it was a
Yeah, it
game.
did.
Let them sell it, lock them up, let my buddy get paid who's going to donate to my campaign. See, we understand the damn picture. We have just bought into the crap so much that we've forgotten exactly that really they consider us nobody until 2020 and this election upcoming and our constitutional rights are in jeopardy. Why do you think they're going after Fannie Willis down in Georgia and they going after Bragg in New York? Then you got the black judge in Washington. You think this is all a coincidence of who is in the seat to prosecute these people and what's happening? Man, we need to wake the hell up, Donnie. And this is what I meant when I said black power. You mentioned $20,000 house bought by Latinos. Right, we beyond that. We built this country, and we have lost our ability to recognize that
Or
we should.
relinquished. Or
We
relinquished.
well, we lost it because we can't relinquish. Because if we relinquished it, who got it? It's still there. We just have lost our focus.
We relinquished, for instance, grandma's house. The house that you grew up in before your mama moved to a nicer neighborhood. We relinquished that, and the house is now having squatters take it over, and these squatters want to come in and own that house, and they don't look like you.
Yeah, Donnie. My peripheral is a little wider in lens than that. It
Okay.
started with
Well,
Obama.
let's put you on the spot.
Obama.
Let's put you on the spot. Where's your grandma's house?
My grandma was on Pressman Street and she did not own. My other grandmother was on Lafayette Street, rented, did
Lafayette
not
Avenue.
own.
Lafayette Avenue.
Lafayette Avenue, 1826 East Lafayette, right? My mother purchased in Evanston Village in 1965, okay, held on to that, leveraged it, leveraged it, leveraged it. Because you got to realize from a salary perspective, we're talking grandma from the 30s and 40s, Donnie, not from the 50s and 60s. I'm sure you read the book,
But she
Not
had
My
a bit of an
Neighborhood,
advantage
and
over the.
redlining. My only
She had a,
point is,
she had a bit of an advantage over the grandmas of 1910, 1920. 20 years, but progress was made. Your mother was a buyer, grandma was a renter.
mhm.
That's
my only,
progress.
yeah, my only point is,
But
Donnie,
but but then we got to this generation that said the hell with Lafayette Avenue, the hell with Pressman Street. We moving to beyond the Beltway, and
you
that's
mean
fine.
this generation, your
No,
generation, my
the one
generation?
before you. Well, more yours, more so yours.
Well, we're in the same generation,
No,
believe me.
you're. I'm 58.
Then we're in the same generation. Let's keep it inside of 10 years. It makes us the same generation.
Okay, okay,
We're the same generation. Just like it's our
okay.
kids selling dope, going to jail. We can't elude the
That's true.
responsibilities. We
That's
can't
true.
elude the responsibilities and saying those damn kids, them our kids out there. We can't say
Oh,
that those guys,
absolutely.
those kids out, those people out there moving to the suburbs, well, they should really be entitled to move where they want. And maybe we're at a point where we need a four-state solution. They talk about a two-state solution from the Palestinians and it's the Israelis, which the Israelis are saying, well, hey, we're just going to annihilate you all. And this is exactly what they're saying in America, certain factions of it. What we have to hope is that there's enough sensitive white people out there that don't want to see a civil war erupt because we know if Donald Trump,
They better step up, buddy.
we
They
know
better
if
step
Donald
up
Trump
because this.
loses, if Donald Trump loses, there's hell to pay. If Donald Trump wins, there's hell to pay. We have uncorked the genie out of the bottle. You ever tried to put a genie back in the bottle? All hell will break loose, man. And so we as a people, maybe it's time to say, well, you give us two warm weather states, you give us two cold weather states, give us our 13% of the GDP, whatever it is that Donnie says we are as a people, and give us that option. And those that like Tim Scott that want to continue to live.
You had me until you said, "Give us." Now, I just want to remind you of the words of Frederick Douglass.
What did Frederick Douglass say? The Republican Frederick Douglass?
Frederick Douglass said they ain't giving you anything. They're not giving you anything. I'm working on my profanity, my use of profanity. They're not giving you anything. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never
Whoa,
will. They're
that's
not
powerful.
giving you.
That's powerful. That's powerful, Donnie. That's powerful. I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
If that's what we're waiting on, yeah, we might as well take a long walk into the harbor.
Precisely my point, Donnie. Precisely my point. I don't know where
And
you went.
so that's why I celebrate your efforts in Africa, because we may have to go back to Africa. Mike, I have a question. Did you sleep with a mosquito net?
Yes. No air conditioning, particularly when I was in Thika County, which is outside of Nairobi. And I actually stayed at a resort that I helped build and do some due diligence for back in 2010. And to see it come to fruition, rise, be owned by Black people. Matter of fact, Donnie, I'm buying land inside of that development in the next few months. They're giving me an opportunity to buy land and ultimately build a house there because I was very comfortable in Africa to a point of had I not gotten on the plane and missed it, it would have been okay, man. And I'm in the midst of my people. I'm not, in the midst of a tourism district, etc. I'm in the midst of my people, see what it is, their struggles in the supermarket as they buying a bag of rice and doing whatever it is that they have to do. And they're peaceful people over there. But I was totally in a comfort zone, Donnie. But yeah, in Thika, there was no air conditioning in the room because there's a nice breeze there. And, we slept inside of a net. And so I don't know what happened to Donnie, but I'm going to shut up. I see Randy in need of a few economic answers. I'm not sure what that means in terms of economic answers, because I think we as a people have very much stated the case from an economic standpoint, what we need in this country. What we have to do is begin to, you know, how we felt. This is Women's History Month. You have you have Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks, who, when I was in Montgomery, I visited Museum of Rosa Parks. And Rosa, of course, was instrumental in the civil rights movement when she refused to get up from a black person, get up for a white person on the bus. And then you got Claudette Colvin, who was the first person to not get up for a white person, but she was too black, too pregnant, and too young, right? And this was back in the 1950s. And so the profile of some of our people still exists today. We got young girls having babies today. Okay, so what? You know, my mother had me when I was 18, my sister when she was 16. So, you know, we turned out okay. She turned out okay. Maybe that's just the way it is. Around the rest of the world, the same thing. But when it comes to an economic condition of our people, we go from wanting to get on the bus and not sit in the back to being moved away by light rail and bike lanes, and not understand that that's part of an economy as well. And we fail to have the right ask. So Rosa and Claudette fought to stay on the bus and sit. Now they build light rails. And by the way, in Montgomery, Alabama, I couldn't find one bus stop. I think they got rid of all the bus stops so they could stop the controversy. And now we're trying to talk about a red line with a black governor to go through black neighborhoods. As Doni just told us, whites are on the residual buy-in now because that's what they follow. They follow rail. I don't want to just ride on the rail. I want all the economic development opportunities that come along with rail, such as the construction jobs, the shops, the high price housing, etc. What am I asking for? Where is black power, Doni? Where is black power now, the center of it? Ketanji Jackson Brown at the Supreme Court, Kamala Harris at the Vice President, Tim Scott in South Carolina. Where is black power in America?
That's a great question. Mike, I don't know what happened. Maybe we got too deep. All I know is all of a sudden things went blank over here. So let's get to it. Baltimore mayoral candidates get feisty at forum featuring top offenders. Top contenders. Forgive me. This would include Brandon Scott, Bob Wallace, Tharu Vignarajah, and Sheila Dixon. Did you see the debate?
Hey, no, but I did not see the debate. Matter of fact, because I was in Selma and Montgomery, but I did read up on the profile from everywhere, talked to two witnesses yesterday. And so I got a sense of it. But, you know, all four of these candidates, all three of the candidates have been on my show, Wake Up Baltimore, every Monday, 7:30, Wake Up Baltimore, another Doni child. So this is Doni has birthed a lot of shows out here as a result of his network. Wake Up Baltimore, Monday, 7:30, very, very, very popular, as well as 60 Minutes in Black America every Sunday at 7 p.m. So on Wake Up Baltimore, we have had all of the mayoral candidates on there interviewed with the exception of Brandon Scott. So we have a sense of Tharu was last week. We had him. We've had Sheila. We've had Bob. So we got a sense of him, Doni. So what's your question? I heard some of the. First of all, maybe they need a forum where all these mayoral candidates have an opportunity, because Donald Scoggins, who's a Republican candidate, we need to listen to what this brother said. Uncle Wayne Baker, we need to hear what he has to say. And stop being, and this is where the world sees
Mike,
our media.
It's time. It's 2 hours, Mike. It's 2 hours, and that wasn't enough time to gather who these four candidates are. So
Doni, we know who they are. We know who they are. We know Tharu got stopped on Greenmont Avenue, putting his face in the camera. We know that Sheila was taken out of office, you know, for what they said was misdemeanor. We know that Brandon is brash, arrogant, hasn't controlled money well. We know that Bob has been a Democrat and independent in a republic. What do we need to hear and know to understand that at the end of the day, Zeke Cohen, who's running for president of the city council, is really, as the timing begins to meet out, and gentrification takes full effect is going to be the mayor in 8 years. It ain't about today. When we going to wake up?
Well, all right. Well, all righty then, Michael
We
Haynie.
know him. We know him. You don't know Bob? You don't know
Okay.
Sheila? Do you know Theroux? He's run 4 times. What else do we need to hear? Unless he switched over and became transgender or something, he has a different perspective of a woman. Why do we keep listening and hearing the same thing over again? Sheila talks about when I was. What do you need tied into when she was and what she did? It's time for us to look at what the real power base is and how we get our piece with the illusion of black leadership in place, because they have no power. Wake up, Baltimore. Your network probably go crazy after that, Dottie. This is what we call a pregnant pause.
Baltimore City Public Schools.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Santalisa makes over $400,000 per year, yet we are producing an inferior product. No Fortune 500 wants to come to a city with the level of carjackings unsolved that we have. They say if your car gets snatched in Baltimore, there's a 92% chance that nothing will happen.
Donnie, I don't know what your question is. I think your question is my appraisal, Dr. Santalisa. I think for what she has done and how she has positioned herself, I think she deserves $1 million, man. Who could perpetrate a fraud and trick of people that ain't worth at least $1 million, right? And the thing that you said that is so critical, we are producing. It ain't her fault that she's making what she's making. It ain't her fault that we're getting what we're getting. You know, this is when we talk about black power and we hand our power to educate our kids that you and I agreed come from our households and our community over to someone else who has an illusion of power, right? Really, that doesn't have an incentive to educate our kids. If you don't have an incentive to have your kid educated before they leave the house, when your kid leaves the house to go to preschool, they should have read Dr. Seuss's book, or maybe there's another one that Dr. Taborn has written for pre-Ks and kindergarten kids that you should have read to your kids, grandma, granddad, and dad, as Donnie alluded to. So if I put the education of my kids in someone else's hand and they don't do the job, who have I given the power to, Donnie?
Your enemy.
So what do I expect my enemy to do?
Kill you.
Educate my kids or kill me intellectually, which I have allowed them to do, and that's why I am exactly where I am today. Black power. Where's black power, Donnie? I've turned it over. I don't own any banks. I don't own any institutions. I don't own any land. And yet I'm expecting somebody to give me something, to do something for me. I told you the people in Africa were selling potatoes en masse on the streets to ensure their kids were educated. And what the educators look like. They don't need a Dr. Santalisa to tell them that their child's going to get better by reading. We've gotten so far ahead of the curve. We've missed so much of the basic essence of reality. And then we have Brown versus Board that perpetrated a fraud and began the disseminating effects of Black Wall Street, right? Not that it wasn't necessary, but the unintended consequences of it were a community that was penetrated by those that saw an opportunity to take advantage of us being desegregated now, educationally, economically, and so all of a sudden pricing became a piece of it. And of course, because they buy bigger bulk than we are, that all of a sudden, what did our corner stores look like in the 60s and 70s, Donnie? And who sold us what and gave us credit?
Oh,
This is after Brown. Come on, man. Come on, man. Where's black power?
We moved to Randallstown.
And that's okay, because
It is
Black
okay.
Power
It's
is
okay
a
to live in
bigger
Randallstown.
reach than that. We
We
can
love
move to Randallstown.
Randallstown.
Maybe we shouldn't have sold East Baltimore and moving. Maybe we could have moved Scorch. You know, continue to buy. So we keep here and buy there and enlarge and widen the community. Black Power, Donnie. Black Power. The illusion of Black Power. Now, what they're apprehensive about in terms of, when I say they in 2024, the Bidens and the Trumps, because truly they're the same. You don't think they're the same? Come on, man, wake up. Is the browning and blacking of America. They say the biggest issue in America today is immigration, the stopping of brown people, which Donnie said already to you has already happened. It's about controlling power now, right? Stopping immigration at the border. The next thing is about women having the right to kill babies, right? Who kills more babies in this country under abortion rights than black women? 46% to 48% of the abortions that happen in America happen as a result of black women. Not that we can't think
Oh
of
my
other
God.
ways to
Oh my
deal with it.
God. Michael, you cannot defame Planned Parenthood. Margaret Sanger was not a racist. She was not a part of eugenics. She was not a part of finding
Hey,
the
folks,
white
Donnie's
master
just
race.
kidding.
Mike,
Donnie's
you
just
can't say
kidding.
these things. Mike,
Donnie
you
is
cannot say.
just kidding. Donnie, you got to let them know you're just kidding, because this is what happens with CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, is that they say these things and we believe it. Donnie's just kidding you all. He's being slightly facetious on that because he knows that it's true that they were racist in their policies and other forms of gentrification.
But Mike,
right,
they got black women to be the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood, and that just wiped away everything bad. And then on top of it, Mike, they've taken Planned Parenthood to Africa, where they want to increase abortions 83%. Mike,
I am so happy you said that, Donnie, because in Kenya alone, this is the perception and why they believe that Donald Trump is better than Joe Biden. Joe Biden sent Jill Biden to Kenya and Africa in 2022, right, with strings attached money to help their economy. And part of the strings attached money is that they do not believe, and hey, I believe that everyone has to, you know, have their day with God, right? If you want to be transgender, you want to have gay marriage, you want to do this, you want to do that, you're entitled. I respect all people.
man,
But they
we got to lay we got to lay a little precedent. Kenya is where Barack Obama has roots, correct?
They are so disappointed in him, knowing that his daddy came from there and the influence that his politics had on their economy. And the fact that right behind him is Vice President Joe Biden sends his wife over there, and the ambassador to Kenya is the richest white woman in America, Meg Whitman, former CEO of Google, worth $3 or $4 billion, right? $3 or $4 billion, right? And they brought strings attached money in terms of grants and health aid loans, etc., if they allowed them to have pride parades over there, etc. The Kenyans went crazy because, as a foundation of people, their religion, from their perspective, doesn't acknowledge this. Not that they can't do it, but all of a sudden, openly and publicly walking down, you know, Nairobi with a protest, and that's not what they wanted. And they do not appreciate Biden for that strings attached money. And so therefore, in rejecting it, their economy hurt.
So that's nothing new. The International Monetary Fund, who's the other one? World Health Organization.
World Health, CDC.
So this is the nonprofit game on an international level. So instead of calling them nonprofits, hold tight. Instead of calling them nonprofits, they call them NGOs, non-governmental organizations.
Absolutely.
But it's the same premise, and the premise is pimping poverty. Poverty pimps.
Crazy.
So in other words, Kenya, if you want this money, then you have to accept Planned Parenthood. Kenya, if you want this money, then you cannot produce your own coffee. You will sell your coffee to this people over here in Belgium. They will make it for you and they will bring it back to you in bags. so that you don't have to do all of the work. We will do all of the work for you. Is that an example, Mr. Haynie?
Absolutely, Dottie. We have to go over there and hear firsthand testimony from our people, because those are our real people over there, man. Those are our real people, and get their perspective and opinion of America. And it differs from our perspective and opinion, and they're looking for the outside in, man.
All right, so
Profound.
This election for president. So this is a very interesting year. Brandon says, do we want to build on his renaissance, or do we want to return to the broken days of the past?
I agree with him, man. I think Brandon makes a very valid point with that. And so is the de facto. So there's credibility issues with, I think, all of them. Well, Brandon has been, besides him giving the baby's mama Charm a bit of money, which, hey, I don't blame him. I mean, hey, that's what they do. Why couldn't he? He should have given her a $2 million grant. She seems to do well with it. Why are we always creating that, man? We should be protecting our people. At the end of the day, and on Wake Up Baltimore this coming Monday, we're going to analyze that. Dr. Zollicoffer and I, all the mayoral candidates, we're going to give Brandon a grade, even though he hadn't appeared. And so is it Bob, the de facto candidate, based on his profile of saying education should be the mandate? Education is what Bob says should be the mandate. Sheila says that it should be systemic issues tied to government and government needs. Well, I believe we should be getting further away from government needs and beginning to control government instead of government controlling us, because that's what's going to happen when that seat flips in 8 years towards the protege that they're building in Zeke Cohen, that they're going to control it. That's what they do in Roland Park. They control it. Okay, so Theroux is, I think he's a nice guy. I think he's well intended, but does he serve better from the private sector than he would in a public position? So they all have good points.
All I know is he's the only one who's been able to keep his name out there for 3 years since the last election.
People but he can't win. He can't win.
Okay, so let's just cut to the chase. Who do you think will win this election come May 14th for mayor?
Hey, well, I will have to say that on Wake Up Baltimore, Donnie, your step show, right, on Monday. So I'm not going to say it here. I'll just say that I've narrowed it down to 2. And I'll say that.
Oh, my God. Who are those 2?
I Wake Up Baltimore, 7:30 a.m. on the
this
YouTube
is not
channel.
The Fox Network. We don't have people hanging in limbo. That's what Fox does. If you notice, and this is what annoys me about Fox, they tell you at 4:00 they're going to tell you who will win the mayor's race, and then you look at the clock, it's 4:59, and you're like, I've watched this for a whole hour, and they lied.
But Donnie, I learned from you, man.
Hold tight. Hold up. I want to bring one. Hold up. I want to bring one more thing in. Next thing you know, you find out that Fox, the owner of the Atlas Group, the same owners of the Atlas Group, David Smith, the sons go out there to Boys Latin. They got Kai Jackson out there speaking to the young men at Boys Latin, and all of that's well and dandy. But you find out that now they own the Baltimore Sun. So, and please don't say anything negative to certain black people about the Baltimore Sun, because they will run you over with their truck. But at the end of the day, this is the same publication that apologized to black people after the Baltimore Banner comes onto the scene and starts kicking their butt and tried to buy half of their staff.
I hear you, Donnie. Donnie.
So one last thing, in conclusion, just like we have a recycled political cadre, we have recycled white media, and none of them have ever cared about black people.
Wow, that is powerful, Donnie. And I gotta say, for our last, I know we're down to the wire, we have got to inject, and this is what people forget, we have got to inject a U.S. Senate race into the mayoral election in Baltimore between Angela Alsobrooke and David Trone, the multi-millionaire. We've got to inject it because it's there. There's an influence of power with that we need to educate our people to. We have to educate our people to this U.S. Senate race.
The same thing that happened to Donna Edwards, and I cannot say that she was the best candidate. I saw that woman at the White House, and she was rude. But then she comes on our radio show. This is when we were in our 21-year stint at Radio 1. And now she wants to be all jolly and in your face. But I remember you at the White House, and you didn't even want to open your mouth. But now
you talk about Donna Edwards, right?
Donna Edwards. So now you got Angela Alsobrooks, and I'm seeing the same thing that happened to Donna Edwards happened to Angela Alsobrooks. They're getting black. They're getting famous black people, popular black people in the DMV and nationally. I mean, they had Jesse Jackson's son. They had Hakeem Jeffries doing these commercials for David Trone. And now they've got a Prince George's councilwoman who was treated unfairly, pregnant, and they are endorsing Trone. They've got so many people. They got so many people you look at and you say, wow, I know they're going to support the black lady.
It's important for your show and my show to educate our people to the real tricks of the trade.
But hold on, let me say one other thing. One last thing. Too often, we saw it with Senator C. Anthony Muse. We saw it with Anthony Brown. Too many blacks from Prince George's wake up too late. By the time they realize that Baltimore is the media center of the state, the election is over.
Well, you know, Donnie, maybe it's the unbelievable poor job we do of educating our people. We told them. Let me give. I think we're down to 3 minutes. I just want to make sure that you and I are aware that our people. You got to tune in and listen to Donnie. You got to tune in and listen to Mike. You don't have to believe what it is we say, but what it does, hopefully, is spur you to go out and look further at the implications of what we're speaking of and find out for yourself. The U.S. Senate race in Maryland between Angela Alsobrooks and David Trone on the Democratic side, he's already put in $22 million, said he's ready to put in another $30 million or buy a seat. Does she have the capacity to do that? No. We know that there's only 100 U.S. senators in this country that have the extreme power of governing in America, right?
But
so they can throw a lot of money.
All she had to do was show up. All she had to do than that. All she had to do was show up for people early and on time, and go to where the people are.
Bigger than that. Hey, listen, if she doesn't show up at all, here we got listen, you don't want to go there with me in terms of the candidates that we're putting up for mayor, which is your question, and the credibility and integrity that they have versus somebody that appears to have integrity and credibility that didn't show up, and talk about our concentrated black power. Let's stop looking at the wrong things to determine whether we support somebody, particularly when we just elected the third only governor in this country's history. What does that tell you? We've only had three. We've only had three in the 275-year plus history, and now we have an opportunity to put a black person in a U.S. Senate seat, which should really be a layup based on the demographics in this country. Then all of a sudden, Larry Hogan comes into the game, right? Granted, very popular governor. He's the one that we are casting our vote against now, not in the Democratic primary. You have to skip the Democratic primary and say, of these two candidates, David Trone and Angela Alsobrooks, which one can beat Larry Hogan? So it's no longer a Democratic primary anymore. It's a general election right now. That's the cycle we're in, and they have to learn from your platform and mine, Donnie, what it is the tangibles are for us to make. By
the time they realize this platform, the election will be over. But I tell you who does pay attention to this platform: the Republicans. The Democrats, too often black Democrats will hire non-blacks to help them. And that's why they lose.
Donnie, it's been real, man. It's been real. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have my own platform. We're in our third year on 60 Minutes in Black America, going into our fourth year. Every Sunday, 7 p.m., we've got some real good things happening. Donnie, helped us get that launch. We have not missed one single show in 3 years. One single show. Wake Up Baltimore Monday mornings, all about Baltimore, the region, on Mondays at 7:30. Tune in. Continue to watch Doni's show on a daily basis, man, because the education has to be different than what we're educating each other in terms of media. We'll go to a white party, we'll spend our money on this and that, but will we spend our money on what really counts and what really helps our economy? Doni, thanks a lot for having me on your show, man.
Up to date, down tomorrow. Do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it, regardless of how I feel. We appreciate you, Michael Haynie. I am somebody. I am my brother's keeper. Good morning, world.